Hi, my name's Bill, and welcome to Triumph Tales. This is going to be an interesting journey where we're talking to those leaders of the very large tech companies in this part of the world, those people that have had amazing journeys up to those leadership positions. We're going to be talking to those brave entrepreneurs that have been starting their own early stage tech companies. And we're talking to those funds that actually back these companies for growth. So if you're looking at this industry and you're interested in joining the industry, if you're at university and you're trying to understand what it takes to become successful in this industry, this could well be for you. Hi, and welcome. I'm absolutely delighted today to introduce you to Justin Choo, the founder and CEO of Knorex here in Singapore. Welcome to it.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you very much for coming in today. It's a brave thing to start a tech company. Where did your journey start?
Well, it all started back in 2009. I just came back from an interview in the US where they were going through the aftermath of the Great Recession at the time.
Oh, yeah.
I had an offer to work on my that was after my PhD, so I got an offer to work in a bioinformatics lab.
In the United States?
In the United States, that was to use essentially computer models to study biological problems.
Okay.
But the grant was just for 1 year, and I thought it was just too short, so I decided to stay put in Singapore, where I was working with A-Star at the time in I2R, and I was working on sort of data mining, where right now it's called data science.
Yeah, yep.
Because of all the AI and machine learning hype. So at that time, that's when I founded Knorex, which is on September 9 at 9 a.m.
Oh, okay, fantastic. What was the inspiration to start a business rather than use your skills in making an impact through another company, a large company, small company? Why go on your own and start your own business?
Right. I think at that time I was already working. I have worked as a teaching assistant in NUS, and then after that I was in a research institute, and before that I had a previous startup before, so I kind of like have a sense of like how it works in terms of like bureaucracy and as well in a startup environment, and I decided that I needed to do something where I could kind of like control the path of the development. I like to build things. I like to see it happen. So that's where I decided that at that time I think that I was also inspired by the book by Jim Collins, Built to Last.
Yes, okay.
So I wanted to build something that could last, and I saw that that's where I could do something impactful with particularly at the time in the space of data mining, text mining area itself. So that's where I founded Knorex at the time.
So I see, obviously with the work I'm doing now, I spend quite a lot of time with founders of different tech companies, right, and with those funds that actually back them. So I've seen this convergence of people, ideas, and money, and then magic happens. So did you have the idea first? Did you have the people first? What was the trigger point?
I think I have actually I have none of those. I have
okay.
No idea. I have no money. I just knew that I wanted to do. I just wanted to do something, which is start a company and get this going.
Very
At
good.
that time, I was working with two other groups in I2R. We were working on using natural language processing, text mining, basically to make sense of the huge amount of data, genetic data, text data, and all these things that were coming up. And we wanted to. I just wanted to kind of like commercialize the technology. So that's when I found.
So Knorex, and we'll get to what Knorex does in a moment, sure, but it's very clear that Knorex fixes a problem for clients. Right. When did that problem first surface, and when did you feel that you were onto something, that you had a solution for it?
So I think Knorex have gone through like quite a number of pivots or evolutions in terms of our 10-year plus of journey. When Knorex was first started, we were working with pharmaceutical, defense, and hospital. So that was my first target. But then the sales cycle was just extremely long, and a lot of people keep asking us to do POC after POC after POC,
Which
and
takes cash and takes time, right?
yeah, and that was the first time I learned a word called pro bono,
Yeah.
which I never knew what it means. I just thought that it sounds cool. Okay, I will do it.
Yeah.
And then only I realized that, that means
No money.
basically
Yeah.
no money. And I'm like, what? So, and that went on for like 9 months or so. And then at that time, my co-founder, which is called Justin as well, Justin Tan, that's where I triggered him. I told him that, when Knorex get to certain stage, at the right time, I will trigger you. So he was actually still with my first company at
Okay.
that time. So I kind of like convinced him to join. And then that's where we went after the media space. We were inspired by the Madman. So I told him that, look, we can't keep doing this pro bono POC thing. We need something that we could just sell something first without building and then get going. And that's when we went to the media space and we started to approach the Star Media Group in Malaysia at that time.
Okay. And that to you then resulted in some clients, which then resulted in a focus, and then that resulted in a scaling business. Is that how it worked?
Yes. In fact, it was actually our first starting point into the advertising business, into the media space business. Right now, which is what we call the ad tech business itself.
Right.
It really got us to
So here's the big moment. What is it that Knorex actually does?
Well, right now, Knorex actually provides programmatic advertising solutions. Essentially, it means automated processes and algorithms to actually advertise for you. So gone are the days where you will call up the media publishers to actually place an ad. Right now, all the ads are pretty much done through algorithmically, using basically smart algorithms to actually show the ads to the right person at the right time. And that is actually doable right now.
Now, was this a new area in the tech industry, or was this one that had been exploited by others but not very successfully? Because I always picture big companies like Google and so on in this space. Or have you plowed a totally different furrow?
So I think the whole space of programmatic advertising kind of like started around 2007, 2008. Even slightly before Knorex was founded. Actually, around that time, it started to really pick up the kind of pace and development around 2013, 2012, 2013, around that period of time. And that was the first time that, in fact, that's when we actually decided to attract external funding. We raised our first Series A to actually build the core engine for the we call it real-time bidding, the RTB engine itself, which enables.
So tell me about the funding journey, because a number of early-stage companies struggle with this whole world of funding. Is it as brutal as they say?
Yeah, I think it could be really brutal. I think, of course, if I think I've gone through both journeys. So my first company was totally self-funded. We only presented once to the VC, just so because we are curious about what a VC does.
What the reaction would be.
And we just presented for fun for VC, but we never actually needed any external funding in my first company. We were cash rich, we were profitable. This Knorex itself was a bit different because it requires a huge outlay to build the infrastructure, to build the necessary computer softwares and so on, to basically allowing us to compete in the market, because there were already established players, very large ones. In fact, most of our competitors are all in the billion dollar grade, or in this case now trillions.
Wow.
As well. So it's a very different ball game. So we needed the kind of capital to actually get started itself.
And if I may say, it's a pretty ballsy decision to go up against companies that size, particularly as a company from here in Singapore or Southeast Asia. What has been your strengths and weaknesses compared to some of those global players that you're competing with?
I think for us, we don't really pay too much attention to competitors. I think we actually focus a lot more on solving the needs of the customers. I always believe that no matter in any space, even though there's well-established players, in fact, I would rather go to a space that have competitors than don't have, because when there's competitors,
There's a
there's
market.
money, there's
Yes.
a market, right?
Yes.
So, so you want to go into those, and to establish that, I think you just need to find your core segments of customers to get started. You need a foothold to get started. So that's what we have done deliberately. In fact, it was driving some of our investors, some of them crazy, because we were rejecting customers, and
Okay.
they were very confused about it. I even have customers who come to us and say, "Why do you reject us?" It doesn't
It's an
make any
interesting
sense.
proposition. Most companies can't say that. So.
Yeah, but we have to be deliberate about it,
Very
because
selective.
we are very small. We are very resource strapped. We don't have the kind of resource to even though we have raised money, but I think we have been very frugal as well, and it helped us, I think, in a lot of ways. Our investors were also very careful in terms of getting us how we spend money itself. But I think importantly, this allowed us to focus on the right segment of customers, so that we can build our solutions, our products for them.
Very good.
That makes sense for them.
So let's talk about talent. You're a young company growing a few years ago. In the tech industry, talent is still critical to enable you to be successful. How are you able to attract talent in away from those big companies, reliable salaries, bonuses, into a startup? What was the secret, if there is one?
I think there is, actually. So I think there are a couple of things. People like, I think, like what they say, people works with people whom they like.
Yeah.
Right? And
Very
I
much
think
so.
it's very important that the leaders, or the so-called initial people who are part of the initial core team, be part of the people who go and recruit as well. So a lot of our initial staff, we got them to help to be like a staff reference. Get people to talk to them. What do they like about company itself? And we are very open to that. So we even allow that new prospective joiners to actually speak to our existing staff, so that they can see that. In our office space as well, we were all open space at the time, so everyone could pretty much see everyone, could talk to anyone. And I think we have also expanded geographically since the first year of our founding. So I like to joke that by the second year, actually, every time when I try to fill a form, I would joke to some of the government agency, should I take multinational companies?
Yeah.
Since we do have like 3 or 4 countries at a time. So we hired in different countries as well, because we realized that certain skill sets is just much easier to actually find in certain markets.
So what was the point that had you step out of Singapore into other countries? Was that client-driven? Was that market opportunity? Because that's another bold decision that early-stage companies have to face.
I think it was market-driven, I would say. It was when we first started in Singapore, because I started from A-Star, and we licensed the initial core technology, which is in text mining and data mining, where I was working on. And although A-Star at that time was our first customers, a lot of the customers in Singapore at the time, they don't consider A-Star as a real customer.
Okay.
So it was very hard, because everyone was asking us for a case study reference, and we don't have that. So we keep going into this catch-22 situation. So I will go to them, they'll say, yeah, do you have a case study? I say, no, but could you be the first? And it's like, I don't want to be the first.
Why would I risk it?
Yeah, so could you get someone else first, and then after that I'll start with you. So that's when I think after like a couple of rounds like this, I just decided that it just doesn't make sense. So let's go to some other markets, banking on the reputation of Singapore.
Right.
So we went to Malaysia, we went to Thailand, and in those markets, I think people are also, I guess in some ways, it's more receptive. Plus, at the same time, we came from Singapore, so there's certain cachet to it. it helps.
There's a certain respect for companies from here. For people who are not from Singapore that's listening,
Right.
could you just spend a moment on explaining what A-Star is?
Right. A-Star is combines of, I think right now it's probably about 15 or so of research institutes. So it's one of the premier research outfit in probably in Asia. There are different branches or different institutes specializes in different area. So where I came from was it was called I2R, Institute of Infocom Research. But we were the oddball because I was from although I was in the data mining department at that time, we were actually working on biological problems.
Very different to advertising.
Yeah, so we were like a small little department. We were a small little department inside the whole institute, which uses informatics, but to work on biological problems itself at the time. Yeah.
So, talk to me about your style as a leader. These are questions I always hate when people ask me, but I'm going to ask you anyway. How would you describe your style as a CEO, and how has that changed as the company's grown?
I think for me, I've definitely gone through my own sort of growing pains and evolution as well. But I think for myself, I like to work with generally independent people, more proactive and preferably smarter people who take initiative. I think more importantly, they have the kind of curiosity to learn, the capacity to learn. I like people who are hungry for learning. I don't really care whether they know something or they don't know something. In fact, I prefer that they don't even know something about it, but they have the hunger to learn. So I like to work with people like that, and I generally entrust the people to work with once I see how they work. So I don't usually just give like freestyle as a beginning. I go with that model of inspect what you expect.
Yeah.
So I generally start with hiring people whom I think I can trust and work with, and then giving them enough boundaries and settings and directions, and then I let them actually sort of do their work.
So I've worked with a number of companies who have come out of North America, Europe, that's trying to crack Asia, but you're trying to do the opposite.
Right.
You're now extending out from Southeast Asia into the United States.
Yeah.
Have you had to modify your leadership style for running a team in the United States versus Southeast Asia?
Right. I think just probably slightly, I guess. We were, because most of my founding team members were all engineers or scientists. So, we were highly systematic, very process driven. And I think right from very early on, I have already said that, whenever we build all our things, it always have to go down to system and processes. I always stress that, emphasize that a lot into all our stuff. So when we actually went into the US market, it was a bit, I felt it was actually like more natural for us, because a lot of things was actually more systematic and structured. And I think in terms of what we do change is probably the way we deal with people. I do find that generally the people in the States that we work with, they are more independent. They're very proactive in general. We don't really have to like even point out like certain things to get done. They usually will start proposing, hey, do you need that to be done?
Oh yes.
Right. So it was quite refreshing for us as well. Yeah, so I do think that definitely there's a different style that we have to adapt. So we right now do have teams in the US and in Southeast Asia and India. So we do adopt certain different style, but we try to bring a bit, some of ours into the US, and some of those that we think are very great points as well.
Bring it back.
That we bring it to
Very good.
to the team.
So how do you manage your time spread across these different time zones and so on in big companies?
Right.
I know it's very stressful because I've done it, but you also have a big team to help you. In your case, not so much, a small company. Are you literally working 24 hours a day, or how do you manage to do this?
Well, I do work a lot. I do enjoy
I know
it.
that.
I do enjoy it a lot as well. Uh, but I think I do have a fantastic team in the US and also in APAC. So we have teams that actually are working actually certain odd hours. So it kind of like overlap
Yeah.
with each other. We do put in certain deliberate hours as well. Like sometimes, like for us, every week on a Friday, I'll make sure that I'll join the call, with our client services team in the US,
Good.
right? So that we make the effort, and we kind of compromise on certain timing as well. Try to find the right timing, that works with each other.
Now, you referenced Mad Men before.
Right.
I followed the first series and I kind of lost interest, but I know the show obviously. So do I picture Knorex as full of crazy advertising execs, or are you full of developers, or are you full of guys who are analytics, data scientists? What's the sort of people that you
Right.
attract and retain in the company?
I think right now we still have a majority of our staff as developers and data science background people. We are scaling up on client servicing side. We are scaling up on sales, because I think what we found out in the US, at least for enterprise sales type of business, is very critical to have a strong support. So we learned that when we first went into the US,
Mm.
and we realized that it's absolutely number one.
Mm.
So we do a lot of effort on put in a lot of effort to make sure that when it comes to customer service, customer support, that becomes really like the priority that we need to focus
So
on.
there's a lot of early stage companies that I've been working with over the last few years here. They all say they're going to crack the US. They all say they're going to be unicorns, and that's part of the first conversation. I'm not totally dismissive, but I just know how hard it is. Now, you made a decision at some point to go to the United States, and you are getting your traction into the market. It's fantastic. What would you say to other startups about opening up in the US? Is there any learning there that they could pick from you or take from you?
I think first is going back to the customers. You need to know your customers. You need to be very clear on that segment of customers to start. I know everyone could preferably be your customers, and we all want everyone to be our customers, right? But I think we all have to be very pragmatic and realistic. Given the time and resource, you need to focus on that segment of customers. So we picked that, and we look at the 50 states of US. We decided that where are these customers primarily located and why.
Mm.
Try to kind of like think about it and then figure out. And that's when when we first went into the US, we participated in trade shows to get started, so that we can talk to people.
Mm.
We can understand how they
Start the
work.
networking, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How they work, how they think, what are they looking for, and so on. We worked with a few small customers in the beginning, so that we could fail, so we could understand as well why we fail and so on. And then before we actually sort of move on to more serious customers that we want to actually retain and grow with.
Because a big part of it, I know, in the software space, is always fail fast, right? Fail fast and move on,
Right,
fail
right.
fast and move on. So it sounds like you've gone through a similar process
Yes.
of learning into that
Yes.
new market. And do you see the US now as where you'll be spending time and focus, or is it just one step on to the next country and so
Right.
on?
I think for the next 1 or 2 years, I think our focus will still be on the US market. We are still a very, very tiny player in a very large market. So I think we want to make sure that we could really penetrate well into the market. So that's going to be our focus, I think, for the near future.
And how does a client in the US see you? Do they see you as a Singaporean company, or do they see you as a new US company? How do you use as a strength or weakness your origins from Singapore?
Interestingly, actually, most of our US customers didn't really bother whether we came from Singapore
Great.
or in fact, I think some of them only realized it pretty late that we are actually from
Okay.
Singapore. Because most of the questions actually begin with, what do you guys do?
Mm.
Does it solve my problem? I have this problem. So could you solve my problem? If you could solve my
That's the
problem,
priority, eh?
yeah, you're in.
Yeah.
which is quite different from I think how a lot of time where we work here, where you know after there's a lot of emphasis placed on where we are from.
Mm.
So rather than the problems and how we could solve for you.
Good. So people in Singapore who are running other startups in other segments, should they think 10 times before moving into the US, or is it something you would encourage them to do?
I think it goes back to again their business,
Yeah.
what they need, and why do they need to go to the US, right? So they need to understand that it is a competitive market. It is a very large market, and I don't believe that it is any easier or harder than, let's say, competing in Singapore.
Mm.
Even though people keep saying that Singapore is a small market, small doesn't mean it's easy.
No,
Actually,
100% agree with that.
right?
Yeah.
Because small actually needs it's in fact we find it's extremely hard because people keep asking for case studies.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's actually it's not easy actually. So you really have to build the kind of credibility and trusts. So in fact, I would say that the trust level that's needed here is even higher than in the US. So knowing what's the purpose of entering into the US market, and then where you should start. I still remember when we first told our investors that we were going to the US. A couple of them actually came up to me and told me that they have seen many other well-funded companies that have gone into US and failed, and so I try to learn from them, like why did they fail,
Yeah.
and kind of like pick up some of those learnings and make sure that I as a leader, and also getting our founding team members as well to be really hands-on and be part of that journey to discover the kind of problems that we are facing, scaling customers, systems, and so on as well.
I've also lived and worked on both the East Coast and the West Coast of the United States in the tech industry, and it is different, there's no question.
Yes.
But every market's different. People still want a good service, and they still want it at the right price,
Yeah.
and that's common across any
Yeah.
country as far as I'm concerned. But it is an enormous place, just from a geographical point of view. And to say crack the US is one thing, but as you've correctly identified, there's 50 states in the union, and you have to have almost a strategy for every one of them. It's not as simple. And one or two of the companies here have been successful in raising Series A money or whatever it may be, and they're saying, well, now we're going to go in the US. And it's like, well, if you spend that entire fund that you've just raised, it's hardly going to cause a drop in the ocean in the US. So
Exactly.
it's a very brave decision to do it, but clearly you've made the right decision as an organization. But I think others really need to think about it before they commit all of their resources to try and crack that biggest market, because it is a red ocean, it's not necessarily a blue ocean.
Absolutely.
Very good. So with part of our audience is people in universities aspiring to get into the tech industry, and they see people like you as role models, and we've got the privilege of being able to talk to leaders of big companies, early stage companies, and so on. But what would you advise people in universities to be studying right now to be relevant in the world of tech?
I think it's to focus on, rather than maybe the subjects, I think it's more on the some of the core essential skills, things that could kind of like live with you even when you graduate, because a lot of time, like I studied computer science in my basic degree. Subsequently, I did bioinformatics, which is in using computers to solve biological problems. My first startup was actually in the stock markets.
Okay.
We were building charting software for brokerages and retailers. So I think it's more important that we learn core skills. For example, like learning programming. It's not really about learning programming. It's to learn how to actually think in logical ways.
Logic. It's the logic. Yeah.
I noticed that, for example, when I work with people, students, and so on from law, they typically have to be able to connect the dots pretty fast. That's an extremely important skills, especially nowadays. There's so many information. You kind of really have to like figure out how to actually piece things together fast and in a kind of like way that makes sense as well. So I think focusing on the core skills that you could learn from each of these fields or studies that you do, I think that should still be the emphasis, I think.
So the world of AI is here, whether we
Right.
it's and having been part of the supercomputer industry years ago, we had neural networks and so on. So the whole large language model is not actually that new,
Yep.
but all of a sudden with the chat interface and all this good stuff, it's taking off. So do you see AI now as an internet moment, or do you see that as another tool in the toolbox?
There's definitely certain internet moment in there. I think especially with the recent breakthrough in terms of deep learning and some of the new models that work on, including the large language models that has been amassed due to all the huge amount of data uh, being available. I think there's definitely the kind of internet moment there. You can see that a lot of the work, including right now, some of the hype terms like generative AIs, it's really helping to. I wouldn't say eliminate jobs actually. I, I, I see it as augmenting a lot of work
Yeah.
that people are doing.
As do I. Yeah.
Right. In fact, I use that, to help me to actually, not really to write my things, but to help me to rethink about how to rewrite some of my things as well, some of my texts, and I think those are very important. So I think in terms of development wise, um, I see this as yet another important milestones, but I think there's still certain major development that's going to happen and going to need to happen in order to really bring us to it.
So AI and Knorex, is that threat opportunity? How do you see it for your company?
We see it definitely as an opportunity. So in fact, right from very early of our company, we have used machine learning because three of our founding members are all trained in data mining and text mining and machine learning. So we have used that extensively across Knorex products right from beginning. We do that a lot for automation purpose, right? Because part of our purpose of a company is really to simplify a lot of all these complexities in the market and help them to actually automate a lot of those processes. To do that, actually some of those tasks are actually humanly impossible. So we need to make use of algorithms. We need to make use of machine learning to actually help to automate a lot of all these processes.
So Justin, if I may, on the sort of last shot, as it were, if you were to go back to your university or
Right.
wherever in the world, a university, and somebody asked you, should I be an entrepreneur, should I not be an entrepreneur, what would you say?
I would say actually do what you are passionate about. I didn't choose to be like I didn't like aspire to be an entrepreneur, a boss, or a CEO. Actually, I just wanted to build. I just enjoy building things, and I want to make things happen. And I just realized that to do that, unfortunately, I have to be either a CEO or an entrepreneur in this case, and that's where it just became like the path in a sense.
Excellent.
Right.
Well, Justin, thank you very much for coming and
Thank you
spending
very
some
much.
time today. I really appreciate it. And thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Bill.